I think it's important to keep in mind that in states where aid in dying is available, it is simply an option. It is not a requirement. It is not a directive. It is not a call to action. It is simply an option for which only a tiny percentage of people will ever qualify. And of that tiny percentage, an even smaller percentage will ever use it. In 25 years, across 11 jurisdictions covering 70 million people, 6,000 people, or I think Tim said 6,300 people have ever used MAID. It's a tiny, tiny number. In other words, its use is extremely rare, but its impact on reducing suffering and bringing peace of mind to thousands of others who at least know that the option is available is huge. By denying me this option at the end of my life, the state of Connecticut is essentially telling me that if I am terminally ill and palliative care and medical treatment can no longer relieve my suffering, I have no choice but to continue to suffer, unless I'm willing to violently take my own life, which ironically is perfectly legal. I totally understand why people's religious values might cause them to reject aid in dying. And I respect their right to say no. And I respect their right to urge others to say no. But I don't see why their choice and right to say no should in any way impinge on my choice and right to say yes. The two can live peaceably side by side. So even if you are a legislator who is personally against aid in dying, I hope you will respect my right to decide for myself. A yes vote for this legislation is not an abandonment of your own personal values or an abandonment of vulnerable populations for whom there are multiple safeguards. It is simply a confirmation of one of our democracy's most precious values, the right to self-determination. If we use the potential for abuse as the reason not to pass this law, then we might as well reverse all laws that give people a right to make any kind of self-determination, because there will always be the possibility, no matter how remote in the case of aid in dying, that people will be manipulated by others. In fact, we might as well just take away everyone's free will altogether. But of course, that is nonsense. Our government needs to have more faith in people's ability to decide what's best for themselves and put more trust in the medical and legal system's ability to prevent abuse of those freedoms. Thank you for listening to my testimony. I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Warburg, for your very powerful testimony. So I think would you be able to expand a little bit about how somebody else's right, because it's something that resonates with me as a physician who is hardwired to protect people. I do not have the right to put my views onto other patients. If you can expand onto that.
Yeah, I think about the Hippocratic Oath, which says do no harm. I think we have to ask ourselves, who gets to define harm? Who gets to define suffering? And it should be the patient, not the doctor. And I actually think that our medical system in many cases does more harm by artificially extending life at any cost, even when the patient is suffering terribly and has no more meaningful life to live. In situations like that, denying aid in dying rather than allowing it ultimately causes more harm. And I think it is absolutely the individual's choice based on their own personal values. And in my making that choice, I am in no way trying to exhort others to follow my example. It is purely a personal choice.
Thank you so much. Representative McCarthy, he has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Warburg, I just wanted to say thank you. I said to you in the brief recess, you are going in the opposite direction. You came up here midday so that you could be here in person. Yeah. And I appreciate you being here and the way you've articulated the position that you have in favor of this and saying, why should others' rights to say no be any stronger than my right to say yes? I appreciate your clarity. and
Thank you.
even brevity with that. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.